This is Your Superior Self, episode 63. You cannot fail with entrepreneur Christian Chasmer.
There was one time, actually the first year I was running my painting business back in college, and I was a really bad leader. I was a bad entrepreneur, and I went through 25 employees when most people in the company go through 8. Like that's how bad of a leader I was. And halfway through the summer, I lost all of my painters. They all left, or I had to fire them, etc. And I still had $40,000 of work to produce, and I had no crew. And I just felt like such a loser and a failure. And it was a really hard time. And I was one of the top salespeople in the company in the spring. So I got to go on this weekend boat trip with a couple of old student painter people who are now running $1 million companies. And one person, Chris, he runs a $20 million logistics company. He was talking to me, and I was telling him about all my failure and how, this is awful. I don't know how I'm going to act. And he just started laughing at me. He said, it's funny, like how you're acting right now. And I was like, okay, this isn't helping. And he's like, no, it's funny because you don't know that you can't fail yet. And I said, okay, Chris, I get it. Positivity is really important. Like that's awesome, but I don't need that. I need tactics right now. Like I need something else. And he's like, no, you don't understand. As long as you don't quit, you can't fail. As long as you learn and move forward, you can't fail. And I know you're not a quitter.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back to your favorite podcast, Your Superior Self. I'm your host, Trey Downs, and I'm fired up. I'm fired up because I get to go to CadreCon tomorrow. I'm excited because I get to listen to Seth Godin. I get to listen to JJ Virgin. I get to listen to Laura Gassner-Otting. And as I sit here and reflect on the past year with the podcast and creating this and starting this up, I am truly blessed, and I am thankful for every opportunity that I get to take advantage of. And in honor of being able to listen to Mr. Godin tomorrow, I'm going to read from his book, Linchpin. And in this excerpt, he talks about the new American dream. And he says, do you remember the old American dream? It struck a chord with millions of people in the United States and in the rest of the world too. Here's how it goes. Keep your head down, follow instructions, show up on time, work hard, suck it up, and you will be rewarded. As we've seen, that dream is over. The new American dream, though, the one that markets around the world are embracing as fast as they can, is this. Be remarkable, be generous, create art, make judgment calls, connect people and ideas, and we have no choice but to reward you. This is such an interesting reading because I didn't think that the American dream was dead. Or not dead, but there was a new one, right? Like I didn't realize that there is a new American dream. There is a part of us that needs to awaken to this. Like we're all asleep to the fact that we need to be more creative, that we need to be more connected with people and ideas and how we can come together and make those ideas happen. We have just been on cruise control most of our lives and in the past, and we just kind of let things roll and let things happen, and it's not going to work anymore. In order to be successful in life and in work, we need to be proactive. We need to start taking all of those areas in our lives in our own hands and create more. We need to start making decisions more. We need to be more generous. We need to give more of ourselves and stop expecting things in return. And this was a powerful reading for me. I encourage all of you to pick up his book, Linchpin. It really has helped me understand this new American dream and what we need to accomplish in order to be better. And to help us get better, I have Christian Chasmer on the show today. He empowers entrepreneurs to build their business with systems that will give them freedom. He works with CEOs and young entrepreneurs who are out to impact the world in a big way. And he believes that they can enjoy their lives while they make that impact. At the age of 26 years old, this young entrepreneur has already built 2 successful companies without sacrificing his lifestyle to stress and burnout. The key, Christian will tell you, is systems, systems, systems. Starting in college, Christian built a franchise from $0 to $1.2 million in annual revenue. He then co-founded the real estate development company CC Solutions and grew it to $6 million in revenue in under 2 years. That is impressive. To help others create the same satisfaction he's found in life and in business, Christian authored the bestseller, Lose the Limits, Break Your Limiting Beliefs, Become a More Productive You in Achieving Everything You Want to Live. I'm excited about my conversation with a Christian. I'm excited to be able to bring this episode to you listening right now. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, please hit subscribe. Please leave a rating and a review. It helps me out big time. So please do that if you can. I know it takes like 30 seconds. Please just do it. All right, guys, without further ado, here is my boy, Christian Chasmer. All right. What's up, Superior Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Your Superior Self. Tonight, I am joined with Christian Chasmer, entrepreneur. Christian, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me, Trey. I'm excited to be here.
So what are you up to today? What's going on in your life? What makes you you?
What makes me me and what's going on today? Really, what makes me me and what I'm up to today is my Elevate Next mission and my program. Really looking to empower people to live their best life. That's been my mission on, a grand scale, and now I'm doing that through my Elevate Next program. So that's been taking up all of my love and brain space.
Best life. I love that. What is that definition though? Like, what does the best life look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone, right? It's your version of the best life, and for me, it's a life of meaning. It's knowing that I'm impacting others. It's time freedom. Really, for me, it all comes back down to a life of meaning and fulfillment, though.
What do you find fulfillment in?
I find fulfillment in little things and big things. Little things like my morning routine with my wife and my 2 cats. I love and cherish those moments. And then big things like impacting others, helping people grow. I am a big believer in empowering others to have the tools to empower themselves. So not just, giving people things, but teaching them things and really teaching a man to fish.
I love that, right? What's the saying? How's it go? You can teach a man how to fish and you can feed his family for, I can't remember how it goes, but definitely teach somebody how to fish is definitely a good thing. Like, how do you do that though? Like, how do you, let's say, you want to teach a man how to fish. How does that look like for you, Christian? How do you teach someone to fish?
Yeah. So for me, what I'm doing lately is helping people with personal systems and business systems. So helping them learn how to implement things in their life, like a financial literacy system that they can then take and use to save their money, to make smart, intentional decisions with their finances so they can start using it the way they really want to use it. Empowering them to learn about mindfulness and personal development so then they can take those and use it to make their life better.
Out of all those categories, like, what would you say is like your niche specialty?
Niche specialty. Great question.
Like, if you had to choose one of those, like, what is your specialty? Like, what area do you find yourself better at the most?
I would say personal systems. So looking at your life and putting systems into your life that lead to where you want to go.
Like, what does that process look like? Give me an example.
Yeah, something as simple as developing a morning routine, right? The habit of a morning routine. Putting that in and not just going through the motions of the morning routine, but making it serve you in the way you want, right? Because everyone's ideal morning routine is different. It could be also something as simple as outsourcing certain items that aren't as important to you, right? Maybe you're spending a whole bunch of your time doing something that you don't enjoy. How do you systemize and outsource that so you can focus on the things you do want to enjoy? So for me, my expertise really came originally from the business world, developing systems like that, being able to outsource and systemize first my real estate development company and then helping other entrepreneurs do the same. But I quickly realized you can really build systems in your personal life too. And then it's call it habits, call it systems, call it routines, but you can put these things in to really almost stack the deck in your favor of hitting the goals you want to hit and going where you want to go.
Like, let's say you're talking to a blue collar guy right now. Let's say you're talking to a middle class worker, union worker, or maybe even just a corporate guy too, middle class. Like, how would they outsource some of those systems?
Yeah, grocery delivery, for example. Getting your groceries delivered is, using Instacart or something like that is huge. I mean, for me and my wife, we would spend, 2 hours in driving, buying the groceries every single weekend. And we were like, man, we could be spending this at the beach. We could be spending this doing nothing, just hanging out on the couch. And so when we outsourced that, it was amazing. I mean, it literally gave us back 2 hours every single weekend, times that by a whole year. That's pretty significant time.
Absolutely. My wife loves it. The only setback on that, though, is sometimes they don't get the right cereal, which then I have to send them back and get another order to bring back the right cereal, because if you have kids and you don't have the right cereal, the morning can be pretty hectic.
Totally.
So you said something about morning processes, morning disciplines. I'm very into that. With the new baby, I'm not really into the morning processes like I used to be. I'm kind of finding myself later in the night doing the meditation, the journaling, the exercising. What outside of those three, what are some other processes that people can set in their schedule to help them, develop their morning and start off on the good foot?
Yeah, I think one essential piece that covers it all is just an unplugged morning of not checking your email and your social media right when you wake up, right? Because then your brain automatically jumps into tasks and the day and what you got to get done and what you're not getting done. So one overall system for me is just not checking my phone for the first couple hours of the morning.
I don't think a lot of people like to feel that disconnect. Like I do that every now and then, right? So I'll find myself in the office or at home. Like, it's very important for me when I get home from work to disconnect from the world. Like, it is so freeing. Like, it is insane. Like, even when I'm in my office and I need a moment because I find myself working. Like, I get stuck in this bubble and I start working on the laptop. And obviously you're connected to everything, Facebook, social media, emails. And then like, I need that disconnect, and it's crazy. Like, to go and turn around or at home, lay on the couch and just kind of be in that moment. I don't think people realize like how freeing that can be.
Oh, it's a total game changer. I've started to do it too on like Sunday afternoons, just putting my phone in a drawer and just being with my wife and being with whatever we're doing. You don't realize. I started thinking, man, when's the last time I didn't have my phone on me? And you could go back months and years. So just that little disconnect, I totally agree with you, Trey. It really does something for the brain.
Have you read that book, The 5 a.m. Club?
I haven't read that one, no.
So it talks a little bit about, like, I cannot remember the author. It's escaping me right now. But it's called the 5 a.m. Club, and they have like these 20-minute sets. Like, so it's like for an hour, 20, 20, 20. They do workout for 20 minutes, then they do a meditation for 20 minutes, and they do journal self-reflection for 20 minutes. And I so want to do that, but it's hard right now just with my schedule and the baby who's right behind me. So if you hear her, this is just an example of it doesn't matter what you have in front of you or behind you. You can do whatever you want to do in your life. But going back to the stories, you got to set up daily disciplines to help start you off on the right foot and to, just, I don't know. It's just like it takes a while to get used to getting up at 5 a.m. and starting to do those things and those processes and systems. But once you start them, it's like you can't live without them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's for me, it's one of my rocks. My morning routine is so sacred and important to me. Where I'm not a morning person by now. Like, if I don't have an alarm, I'm sleeping in, etc. I used to be the worst at it, but now it's the most important and one of my favorite parts of my day.
So to talk more about you, like, tell me your story. Where did you grow up? How did it come to be that you're in this business now?
Yeah. So grew up in a really small town in New Jersey. 200 people in my graduating class, father passed away of cancer when I was young. And so basically had a single mom. She raised me, plus took in two of my cousins as well. So they were basically my brother and my sister. And in that small town, I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I didn't know anything about personal development. I thought personal development was going to the gym. And I never even knew an entrepreneur, knew really anybody who read for leisure. But I did learn hard work, and I had a mom that pushed me to think bigger. So I went to college to be a lawyer, because in my small town in New Jersey, if you wanted to get out of there, you became a lawyer and went to the city, or you became a banker and went to the city. So I was on that law track, and that was the same story for 3 years, just, a normal college kid partying, doing whatever, not really caring. And then I found a piece of paper on my desk one day, and it was a piece of computer paper cut in squares, and it said, run your own business, make $10,000 over the summer. It's literally all it said on the paper. And I said, sign me up. I have $30 in my bank account. That's like 4 more Chipotles until I'm broke. Sign me up. And what I wound up joining was this internship program where I ran an exterior painting business over the summer. So I stayed down in South Carolina. In the spring, I knocked on doors and I learned how to sell to customers. I hired my own painters, and then I managed my own painters over the summer, producing all the work that I sold. And hardest summer of my life. Cried, worked hard, customer issues, employee issues. It was a crazy, crazy, crazy summer, but it was also definitely the most transformational, because I realized what entrepreneurship can do for me, and I love entrepreneurship. And then 2, that I wasn't a great leader or really that great of a person at that point, and I needed to really develop myself if I wanted to be a better entrepreneur and be a better person. So from there started my whole entrepreneurial journey and my journey into personal development. Came back the next year, ran 5 branches down in South Carolina, did pretty successfully. Moved up to Boston, started another division up there from scratch with a partner. We built that up to about $1.2 million in 10 months. From there, we said, okay, we understand this. Let's go do our own thing. We decided to leave that company and start our own real estate development company, and built that over 2 years, scaled that. From there, I really learned how to systemize businesses and what systems and process and leadership can really do for a company. So I eventually systemized myself out of the day-to-day of that real estate development company and moved out to San Diego. And from there, I kind of had a challenge of what do I really want to do with my life? Is this fulfilling? Is this my path, my authentic path? I started asking those deeper questions, and I realized I didn't love real estate development. I loved building companies. I loved my team, but I didn't love real estate development. It wasn't doing what I spoke about earlier. It wasn't giving me that meaning and fulfillment that I wanted. So I decided to leave and sell my real estate development company and start what I'm doing now, which is Elevate Advisors and Elevate Next.
Well, how do you find your fulfillment? Like you ask yourself that question, but trust me, I am in the same boat. I'm asking myself the same questions. It isn't as easy as, is this fulfilling? I mean,
for sure not.
It is a journey. And like, what part of your journey did you finally, what moment, was there a moment like that you said, this isn't fulfilling for me? This over here is, like, was there a moment for that?
Yeah, it was a boil up, right? I started getting really into Stoicism and Buddhism and asking these deeper questions. And there was something in me where I was stressed out and unhappy when we were missing goals, and I was stressed out and unhappy when we were hitting goals. So I realized, gosh, I'm hitting goals and I'm unhappy. I'm missing goals and I'm even more unhappy. There's something wrong here. And I read a question in a book that really hit me in the face, just punched me right in the face. And it said, what would you do if you know you would fail? So what is so important to you that you would do it anyway, even though you'd fail doing it? And that just blew my mind. And for me, it was a clear real estate development wasn't that. It wasn't something I would do even though I would fail doing it. So that forced me to really make that tough decision and leave the company and start Elevate Advisors. And what I think happens when you're looking for fulfillment, it's not a switch, right? Elevate Advisors, I love what it is, and it's helped me craft my mission in a different way, but it was more like I'm calibrating. Like, real estate development was over here, Elevate Advisors was like getting closer, and now with like Elevate Next and my big mission, I'm as close, if not on my path and to fulfillment as I've ever been. So I think it's more of like calibrating and trying out things.
So you talk about quote failure? Like, what was failure? What was the definition of failure for you?
So in that sense, what would you do if you know you would fail? Failure to me in that sense was not attaining the ultimate objective. And I have a different perception of failure in the real world than entrepreneurship. But with that question, it was you don't attain what you're looking for, but you would do it anyway. So like Gandhi, for example, he was a big believer of letting go of the fruit and this quote of doing something even though you'd fail. And he always said that it mattered to him, but it didn't matter to him if that he was able to free his people from oppression in India. Even if he failed in that mission, he was still super happy and super fulfilled because he knew it was the right thing to pursue.
At any point, did you think that? Did you ever think that it wasn't going to happen? Like, did you ever think that, what am I doing? This isn't working the way that I wanted it to. This isn't my vision.
Oh yeah, totally. Absolutely. I think that's where those calibrating moments come in where you're like, okay, I tried this. I'm learning, but this is not where I want to be. Towards the end of the real estate development company, I felt really strongly that way. And I think you feel that way naturally at moments throughout your life. And I think those are good moments because it's called self-awareness, right? You're aware that you don't want to feel this way, or you're aware that, you need to calibrate a little bit further in some other direction.
Talk about calibration. Was there any like life universe signs that helped you calibrate? I mean, so I'm crazy about signs. I just got done reading The Alchemist, and I am just so into the universe telling me what to do next, because it's like, you don't know, right? Like you go out there and you really put yourself out there, very vulnerable to the world, and you have this vision, you have this motivation that you want to achieve, and it's not that easy. It's not easy because our parents, right? Like they taught us how to survive. They said, get a job and work 30 years and retire, right? So nobody ever taught us how to live our passion, live our motivation, and go search of that, right? So we read books, we listen to YouTube channels of motivation, and we listen to podcasts like this one that fire you up and get you ready for the next level. But nobody really tells you how. So I'm really big into like omens and visions and signs and meanings of things. And I even have like a discipline that I do on Thursdays where I will, I'll have a notebook with me, and I won't like be proactive in my daily actions. Like I won't answer any emails, but I'll read them. But I will just look for things, right? If something happens more than once, I'll write it down. And at the end of the day, I'll reflect on everything that I noticed throughout the day. Because if you think about it, everybody's tied up on their phones or cell phones, or phones or computers, and no one's really taking the time to just observe the world and be in that. So what's your thoughts on the universe telling you and showing you what to do?
I think you're absolutely right. I think the way that I got closer and closer to my, call it authentic path or fulfillment, was taking that time and taking that step back and giving myself space to think and space to look at things. When we were just bulldozing through the real estate development company, I was just going from thing to thing to thing to thing, and I wasn't giving myself any space to reflect, any space to think. And when I really was asking myself those existential questions and challenges, I had somebody that, said, hey, why don't you just go for a walk and think? And I didn't do that ever. It was this like new revelation to me. And I really focused and did that. And I would go and sit in a park and journal for an hour and a half, just thinking about things. I would force myself to go take this unplugged time and give myself space to reflect, like you said, and look for patterns, look for things, really ask deep questions in not a asking while I'm walking to another meeting way, but asking and sitting down and actually giving myself the time to work through things. So I think one big how for getting closer to your fulfillment is giving yourself that space to reflect and think and notice patterns, for sure.
How often do you self-reflect, like inward, and take the time to really get to know who you are?
I do that a lot now. I do that with my morning journal. So I write a page or 2 pages every single morning just on what I'm thinking, noticing patterns, thought patterns. I meditate every day, which helps you as well. And then every month I go through a pattern where I I call it my month-end journaling, where I'll sit down and read all my journal notes for that entire month. I'll capture my lessons learned, biggest takeaways, biggest challenges, etc. And I give myself about 2 hours to do that at the end of every month. And that has been really eye-opening.
Awesome. You just led me into my next question. Last month, what was your biggest takeaway?
Biggest takeaway in February. Oh man, that's pretty easy for me. I just got married in February.
Congratulations.
So biggest takeaway in February was marriage is so far amazing. And it's more, so we've been together and living together for quite a while, and I didn't really think marriage was going to change anything, right? I was just like, okay, it's just, we're getting married and we're just going to keep living together and all that good stuff. But for me, it really did make me feel on a different level, like so much more connected and committed, and saying the vows, just like, I don't know, it solidified something. And it changed my perception on marriage for sure. So I think that was for sure the biggest takeaway in February.
What was your perception on marriage?
Pre-marriage?
Yeah.
For me, I didn't grow up in a married family. I didn't really know many people who got married, so I didn't think that it was this thing. I just thought it was more like a legality type thing than a spiritual connection between two people. So it was just, okay, it's something you do at a certain time, and when you love someone, that's just something you do. Now I feel way different about it, and I feel it's definitely a special, I don't want to say spiritual, but the spiritual bond between two people.
So that was your biggest takeaway. What about January? How are we looking for that? Just getting ready for the wedding?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh crap. Oh crap. Oh crap. Oh crap.
That's awesome, man. We talked a little bit about success. Like, what has been like your biggest eye-opening moment, like for its failure? Like, what moment in your life set you up for success that you would consider would have been a failure for you?
Oh man, do you mean what failed? Like a time where I failed that actually set me up in a better way?
Yeah.
Great question. There was one time, actually the first year I was running my painting business back in college, and I was a really bad leader. I was a bad entrepreneur, and I went through 25 employees when most people in the company go through 8. Like that's how bad of a leader I was. And halfway through the summer, I lost all of my painters. They all left, or I had to fire them, etc. And I still had $40,000 of work to produce, and I had no crew. And I just felt like such a loser and a failure. And it was a really hard time. And I was one of the top salespeople in the company in the spring. So I got to go on this little weekend boat trip with a couple of old student painter people who are now running $1 million companies. And one person, Chris, he runs a $20 million logistics company. He was talking to me, and I was telling him about all my failure and how, this is awful. I don't know how I'm going to act. And he just started laughing at me. He said, it's funny, like how you're acting right now. And I was like, okay, this isn't helping. And he's like, no, it's funny because you don't know that you can't fail yet. And I said, okay, Chris, I get it. Positivity is really important. Like that's awesome, but I don't need that. I need tactics right now. Like I need something else. And he's like, no, you don't understand. As long as you don't quit, you can't fail. As long as you learn and move forward, you can't fail. And I know you're not a quitter, Christian. And that just blew my mind. It was like, oh, this isn't a failure. This is a learning opportunity. As long as I don't quit and take myself out of the game, it's not a failure. So I went back, and instead of throwing in the towel, I hired a whole new team. I trained them all. I finished out the year as strong as I possibly could. And it really set the tone for everything else, future problems, future failures in the real estate business and everything. I just always remember that you can't fail. You really can't fail as long as you learn.
Where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, where do I want to go from here? My mission with Elevate Next, and really in my big BHAG goal, if you will, is to impact and change the education system. It's to bring the lessons that we're teaching high-performing young adults right now and CEOs of million-dollar companies, teaching those things to elementary and high school students, things like personal development, entrepreneurship skills, financial literacy, mindfulness. I think I think right now our school system is teaching kids if they don't get good grades, they're not good enough. If you don't get into a good college, you're not good enough. If you don't get a good job, you're not good enough. And you're seeing that and its results throughout all of our generations. So for me, that's my biggest mission, and that would be what I'm going for.
Throw in some self-awareness in there too, because I know when I was in high school, man, I was not self-aware of anything. I could have used it. I mean, because now I'm 30, going to be 36. Wow, in May, and it seems like even now, like I have a hard time. I'm just realizing who I am. Like I'll look inward and self-reflect, and I'll see. Oh, everybody sees the good, right? I am, these characteristics X, Y, and Z, and then there's the bad, right? And then I always try to mask the bad because it's what society says you shouldn't be that way. I'm just starting to accept the bad now. Like, right? Like I tend to be a selfish person. Like it's okay. Like it's fine. It's in my DNA. Like I tend to think more in line of what is going to work out for me, right? And I have to be conscious of that. Like I have to be aware that in most daily decisions, I'm going to put myself first. And as long as you're conscious of these bad things that are in your DNA, in your genetics, inside of you, I think that people just need to be aware of that. Like, it's okay. It's fine. You just got to work towards that. Like, you're not going to change that. You're just going to have to work a little bit harder on yourself than most, right? So I think bringing self-awareness to the younger generation is huge, because I wasn't even self-aware. Like, I feel like, and I want to make this interview about you. Sorry, I'm going to rant on my soapbox, but
okay.
It's like when I was young and all the way up to about 33, when I had this self-awakening or awareness, it was like, have you ever been in a spot, Christian, where you got in a car and you drove from work to home and you got home and you didn't realize that, how did I get home? Like I wasn't aware of the drive at all, right? That's how I felt like my life was, right? Like I was just in this cruise control state, and then like 33 happened, and I became self-aware. Like how the hell did I get here? Like, it wasn't such a bad thing, but it was like awareness finally kicked in. Did you ever have that kind of self-awareness? And if so, what was the experience?
Yeah, that resonates a ton with me, because I feel the same way for a long time, up until really recently, actually, that I was masking and hiding the bad parts of me and repressing them, really. I just started to really look at those bad parts and look at them not as bad parts or good parts, just parts, and I can use them for good. I can they're tools still, just like anything else. For me, one of my big things was I was a huge partier in high school and in college, and I was not like fun, chill partier. I was a let's go wild, crazy, unpredictable, blackout like partier, like that type of stuff, right? And there's this like fun side of me though that I repressed for a long time, even when I stopped drinking liquor, etc. Like sober fun, I kind of repressed because I was like afraid of losing control and flipping over to that wild side, which is probably a little bit unreasonable and illogical too, but I started to understand like, hey, I don't have to repress all of this. Like part of that was good, like having fun and, being a little rambunctious. That's okay. I don't need to repress that. So that really resonates with me. And, part of the cruise control awakening that I had was actually, I'm saying all that now, part of one of the biggest awakenings that I ever had was after one of those nights. I woke up, I was embarrassed by what I was doing, and I realized that if I wanted to grow the business and be the leader and be the person that I eventually want to be, and this was before I'm married, before I was even in this relationship, I needed to change as a person, and I needed to grow and take accountability for these nights and for the way I'm acting and the habits and decisions in my life. And for me, it was definitely a realization and awakening, but two, it was also an empowering feeling, because I realized that I'm at the point in my life because of the choices I make, the decisions I've made in the past, which means I can make better decisions and make different choices and change the trajectory. So it was this dual, all right, I really need to get my act together, and I'm realizing I'm not where I want to be, and then empowering that I can actually do it just by changing my decisions.
I love that, right? So you got to be honest with yourself. You got to really take like you said, it's not good or bad parts. It's just parts. I like that a lot. But society says there's good and bad parts, right? So it's another societal tag. But you have to be honest with the inward look, inward reflection of yourself, and see the parts that are inside of you, whether they're good or bad, and you need to work on them. And then you have to have ownership, right? You have to have ownership of your actions and your decisions. Like I was where I was at when I was 33. Not that it was bad, but all my choices that I made through up to that point led me to that exact position in my life. And a lot of people don't do that. Like you get to have, like Jocko Willink says, you got to have extreme ownership in your decisions and in your life, because you ultimately make the decisions. You are where you are because you made those decisions. No one else. Doesn't matter if you had a parent or not. Doesn't matter if someone did you wrong. Doesn't matter if you were born in poor circumstances. It does not matter. It is your responsibility after you become self-aware of where you're at in your life to change that. It's your responsibility.
Totally agree. Couldn't agree more. I mean, it's getting out of the victim mindset and it's being a volunteer of your life.
So, I love what you're doing. I love that you pivoted from the real estate into what you're doing now. And your future seems to be, very motivating for most. Like, are you writing a book? Is there a book out? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I have written a book. It's called Lose the Limits, and you can get it on Amazon, et cetera. And it touches on a lot of the topics we're talking here in terms of breaking your limiting beliefs, building those habits in your life to live a better life. And yeah, it's very similar to what we're talking about now. And that came as a personal passion project because I felt like I wanted to get this stuff out there because it helped me so much. And I felt lucky, right, that these ideas and books and mentors at specific times came into my life. So it was, let's not leave it up to chance. And that's what I want to do with the education system. I don't want to leave a piece of paper on a student's desk change their life. That's super lucky and great fortune on my end, but we don't need to leave it up to chance. So
do you believe it's chance though? Do you believe it's luck, or do you think it's higher than that? Do you think it's like this deeper meaning?
I think it's the universe. I think it's a mixture of luck and decisions, but I ultimately believe the universe is pulling some of your chains, but you have the decisions to make in those moments too, right? I could have just threw the paper away.
So you talked about mentors. Like who's been your biggest mentor throughout this whole process?
Oh, personal wise, it was definitely my mom. She's the one in that small town to always tell me I can dream bigger, I can think of bigger, and push me to do bigger and to work harder. She let me have my fun too. She always showered me with love and support, which was, I didn't really think how lucky I was at the time. But when you have a parent that's telling you you're capable of anything and you can do anything and you don't have to do the normal things, I think that opened up my world to possibilities to where it wasn't limiting at that point because I had the support, which I know people don't need support, but if it really just opened my eyes. And then she cracked the whip too. She ran a tight ship at home, which taught us all discipline and structure.
How old were you when your father passed?
I was 10.
10. Wow. I am sorry for your loss. My next question is kind of deep. Like, so you grew up, did your mom ever get remarried?
So my mom didn't get remarried. It's an interesting story. She started dating somebody long-term who basically became my stepdad. And then there's Bob, who was best friends with my dad and my mom, who was kind of a really close family friend. He wound up really becoming my godfather and taking over as a second father when my dad died. He never missed a wrestling match all throughout high school. He was there for me. He bought me presents on Christmas. Like we went out every single week. He taught me, I basically call him my second dad and my dad. So I had those two people in my life. And crazy enough, they both actually passed away too. Bob passed away from a heart attack a week before I went to college. And then Dan died of a brain tumor 2 years into college.
Wow. So you've dealt with loss. You're 10 years old, you lose your father, and I'm just asking this question, but you said you had a problem with leadership. Do you feel like not having that father figure in your life? I know you had a stepdad or your mom remarried eventually, but do you think that had a role to play in it?
I think it could have been. What it was for me was I all throughout my life I could step up as a leader, and I did. And I was a captain of the wrestling team, and I did that entrepreneurship program. But I would label myself back then as a selfish leader. I could lead people, but I did it for my own gains. And I think that does come from, our household was everyone pitches in, everyone needs to do stuff and work together. So there was, a lot of we need to fend for ourselves here and we need to live that. So there could have been a lot of that there.
Selfish leader. Wow, that's like pretty powerful moment for me because I feel like when I was growing up that's how I was. Like that was like it was I was good at motivating people. I was on the football team. I was good at, getting someone to work a little bit harder on the field, but it wasn't because, you know, it was because of the win. It was because of, I was a wide receiver because I wanted the ball. So like being that selfish leader, wow, that I never even thought about that, dude. Like that is pretty intense. And going back to the loss aspect of things, like how did you deal with the loss of two men that were significant images in your life?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, a it did two things for me when I was younger. When I lost my dad at 10, one, it made me want to work harder and make him proud in some sort of way, right? Like now he's always looking down on me and I want to make him proud. And I think it gave me that edge in some way. And then two, it made me repress my emotions as a young child. I never wanted to show weakness and I never wanted people to feel bad for me because of that. I didn't want to feel special. Like when I went to school, I was like, I didn't want people to think, oh, that's the kid who lost his father. Like you need to tiptoe around him. So I think for me, it made me repress my emotions. And that's something that crept up in my life all the way up until, maybe a year to 2 years ago when I noticed that I couldn't create close relationships with, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and my mom, et cetera. And I had to face those things and work through those, that emotion problem. So I think it did those two things for me. It gave me an edge and a motivation and a hunger to succeed, but it also made me repress my emotions.
And if you could going deep here, man, going deep. If you could say something to him right now, like either a question or a statement, what would you say to your dad?
I would. First thing that popped in my mind when you said that was, I love you and thank you.
That's powerful. That is extremely powerful because a lot of people, when I ask that question, will say, have I made you proud? No, never. Half the time they don't start with gratitude, right? And it's going with that. Do you think that he's proud with you?
I do. I think so. I think, from what I remember, he always wanted me to be a man of honor and a person who cared about others. And I think, that's what I strive for now. And I think, like I said, I was fortunate enough to have two parents who had really, really tough childhoods and really, really tough parents on themselves. So they supported me and showed me a lot of love.
What's your message going to be when you have kids one day?
Overarching message. Gosh, when I have kids one day, my message to them is really going to be, do what you feel is right and don't settle for what you think everyone else wants you to do, but actually perform and do things that you think is right and that will give you fulfillment. Because I think a lot of times people are afraid of making their parents unhappy or disappointing their parents, so they pursue paths like, for me, that was like being a lawyer, or whatever that path looks like of conformity that's not really happy and fulfilling. And I just want my kids to be happy and fulfilled and live a life of meaning, whatever that means to them. If that's going to art school, okay, that's cool too. That's fine. That's whatever you want to do that's fulfilling and happy to you.
I love that because I think it was with my personal experience is that as a father and my children, I want them to show them unconditional love, like all the time, right? So I don't ever want them to want to get more of my love, because I don't want them to make a decision just because of me, right? Like, I don't want them to follow my path, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't want them to want to do something because they feel like they need more from me, right? Like they want my love more, so they go and they become what I became. I want to love them enough and love them so much that they can be who they're meant to be.
Wow. That resonated. That hit me hard because I was never really able to verbalize what my mom did for me. And I think that's what it was. I never felt like I needed to do anything to win her love. She just loved me. And that allowed. Yeah, they can head over to elevateyoursystems.com,
connect with you,
learn
and
a little bit more about the program. They can search Lose the Limits on Amazon. And they can also check me out on Facebook. Add me as a friend on Facebook.
I want you to now and speak directly to the listener. Like, say I'm listening to this right now, this podcast, and I'm driving down the road and I'm having some concerns where I'm at in my life. I just became aware where I'm at. I'm not happy. I'm not finding fulfillment in my career. Christian, what would you say to them to get them fired up to start searching for who they really are?
Yeah. One quote has really guided me a lot here, and there's an action step after this quote. But the quote that my mom read to me all my time, and it's one of my screensavers on my computer. It's, two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference, by Robert Frost. And it's very hard to take the road less traveled sometimes because of social pressures and because society has told you that it's not safe and it's risky and you're bad if you do it. But don't be afraid to take the road less traveled. And with that being said, take the first steps. Take action, learn, create mentors. But really, the extraordinary lives and the lives of meaning start with one step. They start with taking action. They start with executing whatever that is in your life. Maybe that's looking at a new a career path. Maybe that's going for your first sale. Maybe that's helping people for free to build up the credibility that you need to make your first sale. Like, whatever that action step is, just take the first action. You don't need to know step 3. Just do step 1. You'll figure out step 3.
I love that. His name is Christian Chasmer. He is entrepreneur, newly husband, and he's out there helping the world. So, Christian, thank you so much for joining the show, brother.
Thanks a lot, Trey. It was a pleasure.
I want to say thank you to Christian for joining the show. Thank you guys for listening and hanging out. Please leave a rating and review wherever you get your podcast from. Also, check me out on Facebook at Trey Downs, Downes, and on Instagram at TDowns80, on Twitter at DownsTrey. Check me out, hit me up, leave me a message, give me some feedback. I love hearing from you guys. I hope you guys have a great week.